The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.
Hello and welcome to Financial Planner. Well, we've been discussing about mutual funds for last couple of weeks, and last week was when a certain announcement was made by the market regulator which is impacting your mutual funds. So we'll briefly touch upon what it really means to you and how could it impact you, and moving on with regard to our endeavor as far as making mutual funds an easy understanding investment option for you. We have with us Sumit Ved, who will be guiding us through that. And Sumit, thank you once again for joining us. We've been discussing about mutual funds for over a long period of time, and I think this learning will not stop. We'll continue with doing that. Now, moving on, there is this important development that happened, and only last week was when we were discussing the load structure of mutual funds. We discussed about how a no entry regime was set in and so on and so forth. Now there is another animal that has come out, which is called the transaction cost, which the market regulator has said that about for 10,000 rupees you have to pay, for any 10,000 rupees transaction, you have to pay 100 rupees.
True.
As a financial planner, if you could help the viewers understand what really it means, though I know that a lot of clarity still needs to come in.
Sure. Thanks, Priyal. Always pleasure to be on your show. And before I dive into this mutual funds and what the new regulations or new direction from SEBI might mean, I think I just want to highlight one more aspect of financial planning. This is also a watershed week in another way. For the first time, the richest country in the world, which is the United States of America, was, we can say, on tenterhooks to be at the verge of defaulting. And the lesson which as financial planners we draw, and we want to give it to all our viewers who are watching, is that never get into a situation where your spending or expenses are more than income. The day that happens, even the toughest and the biggest of countries can fall into problems. So me and you are very small animals to think about it. So huge lesson to be learned out of US. Never get into the same position, even if you are AAA rated, even if you are very strong, even if you are very rich, even if you have a lot of money, you can still get into a hole like this. And in order to avoid getting into a hole, you need a financial planner and a financial plan which will help you make your living financially healthy. Now, having set the context for a financial plan and financial planning, let's dive into this particular thing which the regulator has come out with. Here SEBI is saying that, in fact, let's go in history before we dive into this. There was few years ago, approximately 3 years ago, if I'm right, 2.5, 3 years ago, there was this concept of entry load in equity mutual fund.
That's right.
Okay, where
2.25%.
2.25%, and technically it was allowed much more than that, but industry used to charge 2.25% of entry load. Then a regulator, SEBI, came up and said, no, this is not right. We do not allow asset management companies to charge this 2.25% of an entry load and passing it on as a commission to advisor. Hence, we are stopping it. Very progressive move, very good for the end client, and it was good for industry. But what has happened in the last 2.5, 3 years is that mutual fund is a fledgling industry in India. It is meant for retail investors, retail families like you and me, spread across the country. Now, there's a huge cost of going and doing this distribution. So, last 3 years have given statistical evidence that penetration of mutual fund is going slow or is becoming lesser and lesser. The result was that many advisors were not advising mutual fund because it was not making any economic sense for them. So, the move for end customer was very good, but the challenge was, if this product is so good, how do we take it to the last mile customer or people who are spread across the country? So somewhere regulator had to balance this. So this move is a balancing move, in which what they have done is they have said that we will still make sure there is no excessive charges being deducted in form of an entry load from a customer and being paid to advisor as a commission. Having said that, we cannot ignore the advisor and we need to charge something and pay it to them. So what they have come up with, they have come up with two figures. First time transaction 150 rupees, ongoing transaction 100 rupees. That's the first point. Second, these are not applicable for transactions less than 10,000. I think that's right?
Yes.
So that's the second thing. Third, this will be deducted out of investors' investable corpus going into mutual fund in an installment manner. How many installments, how will it get deducted? We are still awaiting clearances. But these are three broad perspectives which regulator has come out with. So Still a lot of details to come out, but this is what it is.
But Sumit, any clarity, if I'm making 10,000 rupees investment, say in a particular fund, what it means, as I understand right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if I'm investing 10,000 rupees in scheme A, then I'm investing 10,000 rupees in scheme B. So when I'm investing 10,000 rupees in scheme B is when 100 rupees is charged from the 10,000 rupees that I invest. Whereas if I'm doing another 10,000 rupees in scheme A itself, where I've already paid 100 rupees, I do not need to make that 100 rupees charge, or 100 rupees charge does not come to me.
No, it's applicable. So if you're doing it's per transaction. So it's not investment, it's transaction. So if you're doing a systematic investment plan, number of time your systematic investment plan hits, every time they deduct something and pay it to the advisor. So it is recurring. It is not one time, and those are the clarifications which we are waiting to really come up. But interesting point which I really kind of like is what they are saying, that divided in installment rather than it hitting in the first go. So it should average out. Now that's good. From a customer's point of view or from an investor's point of view, that at one point of time this is not getting deducted. So there is a merit in this. If you have to do a pros and cons of this move, I will really highlight two parts. One is there is no free lunch. So for all the viewers who are watching this particular show, I've always been very, very vocal that please do not go and avail of free financial advice, because that doesn't work that way. You have to pay for a financial advice so that the financial advisor works for you and do not work for the manufacturer of financial products. So that's the first premise. The second is, when you are paying for a financial advice, you are much more aware and involved in it. It cannot be that I'm working 10 hours in a day earning my money, but when it comes to investing or using that money in any financial product, I say, I don't understand anything. Please, Mr. Advisor, do everything. That's bullshit. Please don't give me that. It doesn't make sense to me. So from these two contexts, this is a good move. Okay. Second point, which you need to also articulate about it, is that from an advisor, this is not a huge amount of money. It's not that he's going to become rich overnight just by taking your 150 rupees out of it, but he still needs to service you in a way. So you have to choose your advisors carefully. You have to be much more involved in your advising practice, and as always, have a financial plan in terms of a direction. So in a way, it's a good direction for the way it has to be happen. The challenge will lie in execution. And I hope it is simple. It's not complicated. It's a hope.
And the challenge will also lie in details, and for the interest of our viewers, perhaps we look into this matter more deeply in terms of the costs and what really the new regime means.
Sure.
Because still now we are supposed to get more clarification as far as how will it really work, what are the, whether it's per transaction, per folio, how does it work. So we'll get all those details to the viewers. But another thing, Sumit, that happened or was, came out from the regulator's door was with regard to, telling the returns in absolute terms and not CAGR. The rationale that was given was that CAGR is slightly complicated to be understood by each and every one. So what the regulator essentially says, that until now mutual fund houses were not allowed to give you absolute returns. For example, if to give you a reference, that if you had invested 10,000 rupees in a scheme A, 10 years after the scheme that you invested in has given X number of, or X return, or the amount here, 10,000 has become an X amount. Is that correct? And this is where we are going to now.
Sure. So rightly said, the move is to simplify mutual fund communication, and I completely agree with the regulator right now that mutual fund is such a good instrument which is made with keeping end customer and investor in mind, but many a time we see that simplicity of mutual fund never gets communicated through the advertising which they do. The terms or the jargons are like rocket to the layman. CAGR, what do you mean by compounded annualized growth returns, or whatever it is, they go and say. So in order to demystify, in order to simplify, they're saying report on absolute return. Absolute return very typically means that during that particular period of time, what was the return which that fund generated? That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So I think that's a great idea, great move to simplify, mutual fund communication, mutual fund advertisements, and even a bigger message for mutual funds that your instrument is really good. The responsibility of mutual fund is to reach large retail investors and retail customers spread across the country. They have to simplify their product, and they need to make sure they need to create a win-win between the end customer, investor, and the advisors by creating charges which are not too much for customers but also encourages or motivate advisors. I think it's a move in the right direction.
Well, on that note, Sumit, we'll have to take a short break here.
Sure.
We'll be back in a bit to address your queries, and as I said earlier, that we will be taking up this matter more deeply in our subsequent episodes. So we take a short break here and we'll address your queries with Sumit here. Don't go anywhere.
The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF. The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.
Welcome back to Financial Planner. It's that time that we'll be taking up your queries.
Investment Ladder, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.
Well, Sumit, we have a query from this young boy, Arpit Sharma, who's from Bangalore. He's 25 years of age and he has started his job recently, and he wants to, understand about financial planning, and basically has decided to invest in mutual fund through SIP, which I think is good enough that people at such young age are looking and thinking in that direction. I think that's an important motive that we are all working for. He says that his in-hand income is around 20,000 rupees per month, of which about 7,000 rupees per month is which goes for his expenses, and the rest is kept in his account. He wants to know that he wants to invest in a mutual fund through an SIP. He's shortlisted 3 funds to invest in. He's planning to start with 1,000 rupees SIP to begin with.
Sure.
In these funds, 2 are equity funds. One is a balanced fund. Basically, he wants to have a mix, so counterweight volatility is what he says. The choices of funds that he's given is HDFC Equity and HDFC Top 200, and a balanced fund where HDFC Balanced is what he's looking at.
Sure.
Now, he wants to know that we suggest him on funds, whether his amount is sufficient or not, and given the entire background he's coming from. So clearly at this early age, it's a good first step to go through an SIP and look at
Sure.
equity funds. Your view, Sumit?
I think fantastic perspective. At such a young age, he's financially aware, and there's a lot of lessons for viewers who are watching us. The earlier you start in financial advice and in financial planning, the better it is for your long terms. But the core advice when we start is, if you see his expenses versus his income, he's saving close to 13,000 rupees a month. Income is 20,000 rupees a month. Expenses are 7,000. So he's saving 13,000. Now that 13,000 needs to fit into his financial plan. The first step which you need to articulate is get hold of a financial planner and prepare a financial plan. Within a financial plan, first thing which he needs to take care is planning his emergencies. He started a job. Many a time at young age we see it takes some time for us to understand what career jobs we need to take, their volatility. So tomorrow if there is a situation where he needs to change a career and he needs to take a break, provided he has got emergency funding. So he should keep aside 6 months worth of money aside, and that's first pound of money he needs to keep aside. Second,
Sumit, I'm just sorry I'm interrupting you, but this is essentially to reiterate and sort of talk about it, because here Arpit is starting an annual income of 20,000 rupees per month. Lot of viewers, and we do get these queries when they question that, for such a small amount, do financial advisors provide advice on this? It's perhaps perceived that financial advisors are only looking at high-end clients or people with higher incomes. So I think you could perhaps clarify that to the viewers, which I think is important.
Sure, I think very valid question. There are 2 kind of broad financial advisors / financial planners. One are fee-based, who will charge you a fee for giving the advice. The other are commission-based, who will get 100% commission from the manufacturer. Usually, saying the financial advisors who are commission-based, they always run for bigger portfolios, because on bigger portfolios they get bigger commissions. And whereas if you are a fee-based financial advisor or a planner, you are just like a financial doctor. A doctor never chooses whether you are rich or poor. He says, this is what my fees is. Please pay and I'll prepare a plan for you, or I'll prepare diagnostics for you. So similarly, within financial planning, there are large number of advisors available across the country which are available at various price points. So I think the going rate for preparing a financial plan in India is 10,000 to 15,000 rupees a year. I think with the income of 20,000 rupees, that's the bare minimum which he can afford to really go in and spend that money on. So the idea out here is to get a financial planner who will charge you money, prepare your financial plan, and then execute a financial plan. So financial planning is very affordable. Please pay for it and choose an advisor who's a certified financial planner who can help you prepare. That's the advice for you.
Going as far as his portfolio is concerned, one is his question about the SIP. 1,000 rupees in 3 SIPs is what he's planning. Is that enough? Because what it seems like the other 10,000 rupees or that's going to be there of the 13,000 that he's saving is in his account currently. So what
That's
is your advice
so
that you...
first thing, get your emergency planning done. 6 months worth of your expenses kept aside. So in case you have to take a career break or some untoward instance like job loss, etc. happen, you don't become desperate. Step number 1. Step number 2, get your basic risk taken care of. That is, life insurance should be there, adequate, based on a human life value. I think starting point for you is good 1 crore, because at your level it will come very, very cheap. So go in and buy an online ICICI Prudential life insurance term plan. It works very well for you. So that's second step. Have adequate health insurance. Many a time we see that people don't have adequate health insurance, and especially for youngsters who are not married. At this point, if you can go and buy health insurance for your parents if they are not covered, I think that's the best way of giving back your faith back to your parents. Because at a later stage, as they become more old, it will become very costly for you to afford it. So buy a health cover for yourself and also for your parents. Very important.
And you will also get tax benefits on that.
You get tax benefits, and I always say it's very important. As soon as we get a job, we should give it back to our parents, because they spend so much of energy, time and money on us. In any way we can give it back to them, we should. So I think after taking care of your basic emergency and risk planning, rest of the amount needs to get linked to goals. So today we don't see any goals. He's saying I need to save or invest this money, but what goal? Are you talking about buying a car, buying a house? Are you talking about your own marriage? You're talking about global vacation. Put a goal. And when you put a goal, put 2 things along with it: timeline and how much money do you need at the end of it. It will help you extrapolate and calculate an inflation angle to it and point to it. So, yep, you have a question?
And very quickly with regard to his funds.
Yeah. So after he has goals, his choices of funds is good. HDFC mutual fund is a good house, but he's not diversifying across. He's all 3 into 1 mutual fund. Not a right choice to do. I will advise continue with HDFC Prudence as a balanced fund. Choose DSP BlackRock equity and choose ICICI Prudential focused equity. I think these 3 equity, 2 equity funds and 1 balanced fund can be a good corpus. Also look at a fixed income fund. Ideally, Birla Sun Life Dynamic Bond Fund will fit in. So instead of 3 funds, look at 4. Again, I'm taking the name DSP BlackRock Equity, ICICI Prudential Focused Equity, HDFC Prudence Fund, and Birla Sun Life Dynamic Bond Fund.
Well, so Arpit, as Sumit has given you the whole advice, goal is what you need to set right away. He's given you the choices of funds. So we hope that you will send us your mail again with regard to your goals, and we'll help you plan more.
Investment Ladder, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.
Well, on that note, we'll take a short break, but we'll be busting some terms when we return.
The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange. The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.
Welcome back. You're watching Financial Planner. It's time that we bust some terms, and the term that we have chosen today is ETFs, or exchange traded funds. You know, Sumit, we've briefly touched upon it at various instances, but let's go complete depth and understand what are exchange traded funds.
Okay, exchange traded funds are type of mutual fund which are available to be bought and sold on stock exchanges, just the way you trade or just the way you buy stocks of companies. Okay, the basic advantage of exchange traded fund vis-a-vis a normal mutual fund is that you get the value of that particular fund at a point of time. That means, you know, I can go and buy an exchange traded fund at 12 p.m. as per that time's value, whereas in a mutual fund you get end day's value, which is net asset value. So in terms of price finding mechanism and in terms of valuation, it is much more refined system. So that's point number 1. The second advantage is most of the exchange traded ones globally are tracked to index. You know, and indexing is one of efficient ways of getting into equity markets, because what indexing really proposes that we do not believe in an active fund management. We believe in a passive fund management. Instead of giving money to active fund management who's going to charge us some premium, we'll go and invest in an index like Nifty, index like Sensex, and just get the benefit or a returns of that. If I have to invest in an index, I'll rather use ETF rather than using a normal mutual fund. So exchange traded funds are much more efficient ways of getting into index / passive funds, and secondly, it also helps you get better valuation at a point of time. So these are the 2 advantages in explaining you.
What about the tax structure in terms of how is the tax calculated as far as ETFs are concerned, and the costs?
Okay, on the cost side, it's always much better than active fund management and active mutual funds which are available. And the reason for that is the transaction cost of exchange traded funds are much lesser, and in most of the cases, ETFs are passive funds, so they don't have active fund management cost attached to it. So as a result of that, the overall costing is less. The second question was taxation. Now, taxation of ETFs is nothing different from the normal mutual fund. If you're buying an equity mutual fund, whether it's ETF route or a normal mutual fund, there is no differentiation which needs to be articulated in terms of looking at it, because ETFs are always a basket of stocks. So as a fund, there's no difference, same tax treatment, and you can really have a benefit of it. One more point I like to really highlight out here is globally there's a huge move towards more and more ETFs becoming more popular. More and more funds are getting invested into ETFs, because in a developed market it's very difficult to outperform benchmark. If a fund manager as an active fund manager is not able to outperform a benchmark, and I'm going to get a benchmark return, why should I pay him an extra management fee? In that case, it makes much more sense to invest in ETFs. So more and more developed and large market is seeing money going into ETF.
Well, thank you, Sumit, as always, for your guidance and helping the viewers understand mutual funds and so many other concepts really deeply and in a way that they can make an informed decision. But if you have any query, whatever query that it may be, as basic as it may be, please do write into us. We will be addressing those queries. We'll have Sumit addressing those queries for you. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to see your response coming to us.
The Financial Planner, presented by the Bombay Stock Exchange, IPF.